Please join us in welcoming Duncan to the stage.
Boss Energy is the 100% owner of the Honeymoon uranium mine located in the premier uranium state in Australia called South Australia. I say premier because the only operating mines are located there, the other two being Olympic Dam and Heathgate. We're destined to be the state's third operating mine and, for that matter, Australia's first in the last decade. In June last year, we announced our final investment decision, and I'm pleased to report that we are on track, we're on target for first production by the end of this calendar year. Last week, we were really proud to announce the delivery of a major milestone, the first ion exchange circuit being delivered to site, and there you can see a picture of the elution column that came with. I took that photo as I'd just flown in from the mine charter flight from Adelaide, some 60-minute flight, to take that column, and it was probably one of the most exciting moments I've actually had on Honeymoon in the last 7 years. My colleague Bruce, who's Head of Operational Readiness, reached out and he said, "Geez, Dunk, I haven't seen you look so happy." And I said, "Well, mate, this is a major moment. It's a big day. Finally, we're taking delivery of plant which is going to increase throughput, increase production and lower operating costs. It's a game changer." And after all these years of extensive studies, internally, international experts, feasibility studies, field leach trials, raising capital, it's now coming to fruition. Ion exchange is used predominantly throughout the world. It accounts for about 60% of the world's uranium supply. It's used extensively throughout Kazakhstan, North America and Australia. It is for these reasons that lower operating costs, increased production throughput is why these mines have been able to sustain operations during the last decade during low commodity prices, and they're now set to grow. I can honestly tell you that the fundamentals in the uranium market are the strongest I've seen in living memory. New production is needed, and that's where Boss is on target to delivering into a rising market. When we look at the worldwide, security of supply is really dominating the industry. Nuclear fuel markets are seeing massive upheavals due to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Nuclear energy accounts for about 12% of the world's energy requirements. The invasion has highlighted geopolitical uncertainty and the need for energy security as a priority. Western utilities we're finding are weaning themselves off Russian supply, and we're also finding that China and Russia are taking a more significant stake in Kazakhstan operations. Compounding this problem is the fact that there are logistical issues moving Kazakhstan, which is the world's largest producer of uranium, their material through Russian ports. Supply is under threat like we haven't seen since the early 1970s, and there's very little inventory around, and new production is needed in the near term. With an emphasis on security, fuel buyers around the world are looking for uranium from geopolitically stable countries, friendly nations such as Australia, and there we are in that sort of sweet spot. There is no doubt in my mind that the price is going to overshoot in response to this currently forecast supply deficit. Demand is growing and so too is the supply deficit. Mobile inventories are now significantly lower than they were in the early 2000s. Inventories held by utilities are also reaching all-time lows. The US, on average, have about 2 years of cover. When we look across the EU, there's about 36 months of cover, but they're reaching all-time lows. Those inventory levels need to be replenished. The tide has turned. Where is this new supply going to come from? And that's the perfect timing to bring proven restart mines such as Honeymoon back into production, coming back online. And in the last sort of 6 months to 12 months, we are constantly inundated with fuel buyers to enter into off-market contracts. And we can see that the price is now beginning to respond, particularly in that term contract market. We are seeing a lot more activity. The market signals that we are seeing dovetails with that overwhelmingly optimistic statements made by Cameco in their quarterly address last week. I'm confident that we'll be announcing contracts before we enter production by the end of this year. We've been resisting, however, the temptation to do so in the lead up to this point because we had a strong belief that uranium prices would rise, and they have, so luckily we held out. Thank goodness we did. Our well-defined strategy is to enter into market-related contracts with varying tenures to keep growing with the market and growing with and layering in to that rising price. We firmly believe that there's going to be a pinch point within the next 1 to 3 years, and that's likely to give an overreaction to the commodity price because there is simply not enough supply or inventory to meet demand. Last year, for example, 24 million pounds of material had been contracted. Already we've reached that level, around 118 million pounds. And it follows that the best deal that a uranium producer can make in a rising market are those market-related contracts with a strong floor and a high ceiling. Exactly what our strategy has been and why we've been preparing and working hard for this moment. We're entering a new market where proven restart mines such as Honeymoon will absolutely shine. When we look Honeymoon, it's fully permitted, it's a low-cost restart asset that previously produced and exported uranium around the world before being placed in care and maintenance in 2014 due to low uranium prices. Since acquiring the project in December 2015, we've been executing a strategy to maximise shareholder value by preparing for the turn in the commodity cycle that we're now seeing. What sets us apart from other uranium development companies and restarts is that we are fully funded. We have zero debt. We have about $200 million worth of liquid assets made up of cash, 87 million, and physical inventory of about 1.25 million pounds. We're in Australia. We're 100% owned. And Honeymoon is fully permitted. All our native title agreements are in place, our environmental permits are in place, and we have a federal government-endorsed export permit for £3.3 million per annum. In addition to the mine life that we have announced already, there's significant exploration and mine life extension possibilities as we prove up some of our additional resource sitting outside the mine licence. But the real game changer is that ion exchange circuit. It allows us to increase production to 2.45 million pounds and lower our operating costs, where we can see cash costs less than 20 US per pound, all-in costs at around 32 US per pound, bearing in mind that the current spot price in uranium is 56 US per pound and set to rise. Uranium supply, bringing a mine on as we're doing, is really a matter of price and timing, which is less certain these days. And many projects require higher prices to incentivise production. It used to be 60 US per pound. These days, 80 US per pound is what's bandied about as being the number to achieve. Prices therefore have to rise, and we're clearly ahead of that curve. So the platform is set, and we are well placed to build a strong multi-tiered asset platform going forward. This is the team to take you forward. Wyatt Buck, Chair, he'd spent his formative years with Cameco. He was the general manager of their flagship mines, being MacArthur River and Key Lake. After 15 years, he was headhunted by Paladin, where he saw their flagship mine, Langer Heinrich, through its commissioning to nameplate production. This will be his 4th uranium mine he's commissioned. It will be the 2nd mine commissioned in uranium in the past 8 years. Bryn Jones, he also started his formative career in the industry. He started with Heathgate, the 4-mile operation, our nearest operating uranium mine that uses the same processing methodology as we do, in situ recovery and ion exchange. In management, we have a very skilled uranium workforce, courtesy of being in South Australia, throughout the various disciplines. We also have one of the world's top uranium traders as our strategic advisor in Sashi Davies. In construction activities that we're undertaking now, we're self-performing those activities as a more commonly used sort of EPCM model, which means we're controlling our own destiny. We're doing our own engineering, our procurement, our contracting, and we do this by employing people who we know and are closely aligned with the company objectives. They're gaining knowledge and familiarity during that construction build such that it can roll over to operations. We personally know our people and we've worked with them for many years. Nearly 80% of our CapEx has been committed within budget, and I would argue that is because we've been self-performing, rather than paying the 20 to 30% premium on an EPCM type model. But best of all, we're financed through to production. As mentioned, there's absolutely no debt, and we've deliberately raised our funding through equity markets in March last year before the interest rates started to hike up, because it avoided the need to lock in contracts at those lower prices that would have been required to underpin debt financing. We were firm believers in that at that stage that uranium price was going to rise. It followed on the previous year in March 2021, we purchased 1.25 million pounds of physical uranium at a price of about 30 US per pound. Well, that's nearly doubled in value today, and it's helping enormously with our contracting efforts, giving us leverage in negotiations, and will cover our working capital requirements during the first few years of ramp up. The four key areas that we're concentrating on: wellfield development, introducing more modern wellfield design work, the ion exchange that I've mentioned, introducing 2 new calciners so that we can heat our product at a higher temperature to produce U3O8, and the water treatment plant. Effectively, we're doubling the size of it. Think desalination. It's removing the chlorides and allowing us to use a more pristine lixiviant through our wellfield leaching. In terms of our major progress, we are on time, we are on budget, or our lead items have been issued, critical equipment ordered, 170 procurement packages awarded to date, and again, 80% of our CapEx is within budget to date. Gypsum pond completed, water treatment plant nearing completion, ion exchange columns going in, the initial transformers being delivered to site. And as I can say before, our ISR mining, it's typically used around the world. Some 60% of operations use this method. It's ESG friendly, it's used throughout Kazakhstan. Unlike conventional mining, there's limited ground disturbance. It really is one that the ESG funds are being highly attracted to. Essentially, it's a 4 or 5 spot pattern, 4 injection wells, 1 extraction well to create that pressure. The barren leach solution is injected through the ore body to recover and leach the uranium through the basal sands such that we can pump to the surface to the front end of the plant. Pictures tell 1,000 words, so here's just some recent shots I've taken on site. But there's the wellfield development sitting just adjacent to the plant. That will account for the first few years. It's in our highest grade category, about 8 million pounds measured resource there. We can also see the gypsum pond that was completed a few weeks prior, and there in the background you can see the plant, but that will account for the first 5 years. We can also see, again, another example of self-performing. We purchased a 400-tonne crane to take care of our own construction activities. Already we're getting offers to purchase it off us for 20% higher than what we actually purchased. And there you can see it removing the old redundant solvent extraction pulse columns. Water treatment plant and RO plant are set to be completed in the coming weeks, which will soon be announced to the market. Our resource is very competitive worldwide, 72 million pounds. We've grown that from 17 million pounds from acquisition, but right now we're concentrating on our satellite deposits, Gould's Dam and Jason's. We've got the rigs turning out at Gould's Dam. We'll shortly be announcing some of those results. They're looking good, I believe, but what's great about that, it's got the potential to increase the mine life and production throughput such that we can live from the 2.45 million pound nameplate up to the 3.3 million pound export permit. Financial highlights are also very compelling, but when you assess the feasibility of uranium projects, also look at the qualitative factors and keep asking these 3 simple questions to produce multiple shareholder returns. What jurisdictions are the mines located in? Are they friendly to uranium? Are they able to access experienced people like we can in South Australia? What hurdles are needed to jump through for permitting? Is the government and local community supportive? As well as delivering strong financial returns, Boss Energy satisfies these important questions, and as such, we believe we are very well prepared for launching Honeymoon into the best uranium market in memory. The market itself is tightest in the period to 2030 until new mines waiting in the wings achieve those higher prices in excess of 80 US per pound. With our first mover advantage, we can really lock in, generate cash and become a bigger player through organic exploration and funding further acquisitions. The value of the feasibility study, those satellite deposits, our own physical inventory, all the meanwhile leverage to the uranium price and maintaining that discipline on operational efficiency and productivity. And finally, with ESG, we're very committed to this. It's the foundation for delivering sustainable production. Full details of our ESG framework will be released in the next week or 2, which underpins the company's meaningful contribution to mitigating climate change and producing affordable energy around the world. As I sat down for dinner last Wednesday in the mess hall on site, Mick Coulthard from the Agdamartha people joined me, whose land we operate upon, sat with me to have dinner, and he said, "Dunk, I know we're focused on construction activities, but what do you say if I become the cultural captain so I can impart some of that Aboriginal culture and heritage on the rest of the workforce?" "Mick," I said, "that's a great idea, mate. Let's do it together with Alfie from the Willakali group, who's currently out there drilling on Gould's Dam, but it's something we really want to impart on the workforce." I'm proud to say 10% of our workforce have proud Aboriginal heritage, 15% of our workforce are female. We're committed to building upon this and be a real choice employer for all as we commence production at the end of this year, supplying into a rising uranium market, the best in living memory. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Duncan. Thanks, Duncan. Great presentation.